everybody. Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer.
And I am Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker. And we are both in Milwaukee, but in two separate rooms today. And that's
Yes.
I had a long day, and I was like, Alan, I'm doing this virtually. So here we are.
No, it's all right. I also have had a very busy day, a lot of back and forth with a lot of different things. So I'm okay with doing this.
Good.
And Jim, I didn't know that you live in a dungeon, but
I
that's kind of
too.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Usually it's blink twice if you're in trouble, and I'm not in trouble,
Yeah.
so I'm okay. But I want to be clear. I have lights in this room that are on, and it's just not working. So that's great. Like it actually looks dark. Like I have a light right above me, and I'm upset at Zoom's capabilities for not catching that light, but I can't do anything about that. So here we are, and it's everything's okay over here.
I was gonna say I like to envision that like Jim has been held hostage. He's
Uh-huh.
actually been kept hostage and he has to do this podcast, otherwise he can't be
Which,
released.
oddly enough, one of my actual like fears, like one of my nightmares, is to be held hostage, like a ransom, like torture. That's why I try not to know anything about too much stuff. Like I don't want anyone to have to like get me to get knowledge. I try to keep my knowledge base at a minimum to make sure that I'm not wanted for criminals to come and grab me. That's a low key fun fact there. I never want
I
that to happen.
like that your strategy is to just keep the knowledge base at a minimum.
Stay
That's
a
not
little
my
bit.
strategy. It's just what happens.
It's
Um,
just a natural part of Alan. Yeah, he just doesn't know it.
yeah.
That's a fair.
But if that's your fear, one of
Yes.
my big fears is actually is drowning. So
Ooh.
it's a
Well,
pretty good that we have our guest on today that is here to help us out with that sort of thing.
you out. Yes. And
Jim,
let
who do
me
we have
introduce the
today?
guest. That would be wonderful. We are very excited to have Cori Myka, whose name I pronounced correctly. We established it
Woohoo.
right before. And Cori is the founder of Calm Within Adult Swim and the creator of the Foundations of Change Learning Methods. So Cori transforms adult non-swimmers from fearful beginners into confident achievers of their wildest aquatic aspirations, which I love. And she's been featured on NPR and USA Today. Cori, welcome to Hustling Sideways.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I love wildest aquatic aspirations. I'm stealing that, just so you know. That's the coolest phrase of all time.
And, I keep it in, for those people who are listening, you can't tell, I don't have a dark room, but I have a nice ocean scene behind me.
It's
Yeah,
a
that
much
looks
more
lovely.
pleasant experience than what I'm showing off right now as a moral. Cori, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, maybe a little bit of your background, and what you're up to.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm currently up in Seattle, Washington, and I say up in because I grew up down in Southern California. So on that oceany coast there. But although I didn't spend a lot of time in the ocean growing up because it was always cold there and I didn't know how to do cold water yet. But I did grow up in the water. That was a big piece of my childhood and a big piece of our like family culture and what we did. And my first offer, to teach somebody to swim on Lake Powell, 5 years old. My aunt standing on the houseboat. We did a family houseboat trip, and she says, "Well, I'm not going to get in the water because I can't swim." Little 5-year-old me. "I'll teach you how, Auntie. I'll teach you how." I think she still doesn't swim. She still hasn't taken me up on the
Not gonna
offer,
help.
but
So
it
you
was.
knew how to swim though, like from 5 years old on, or when did you learn to swim?
Well, I mean, obviously I had a belief in myself that I could swim at 5 years old. I always think kind of a fun fact about me is that I've never completed a swimming lesson.
Oh wow.
Um,
Oh,
yeah, because I'd go to swimming lessons, and my sister and my parents would diligently sign us up for swimming lessons, and my older sister and I would go, and she's the good little one, and she would
Mhm.
get all of her little badges. She had all her badges, and I would get into class, and the teacher would say something like, "Swim out to me," and I'd say, "Well, don't step backwards," and they'd say, "Okay," and I put my face in, and I would see them stepping backwards, and I would stand up. "No, I'm not having any of this. I don't trust you." So yeah, I'd
Wow.
always like get ear infections or tummy
Oh
aches or
yeah.
some reason why I couldn't go to swimming lessons. So yeah, never finished a swimming lesson, but yet this is
There you
my
go. And I
passion.
was in them for 10 years of my life. And yeah, my parents signed us all up. It was kind of wild. And that was a big thing. But I'm curious. So growing up in the water, was that like just swimming? Was it boating? Was it jet ski? Like how much of water sports did you get into, or did you find yourself getting? Because I kind of grew up in the water too, and with some like jet skiing and tubing and stuff like that. We had like a family cottage out in Michigan. So I'm curious,
Mm.
how much did you do of that too?
Yeah, we actually, I would say relative to some aquatic families, not that much.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really is just this innate passion that I had, um, and desire and call towards the water that I had. And I don't exactly know why. And I do find that kind of interesting. I think my niece has the same thing. Um, but I did water skiing certainly growing up, and
Mm-hmm.
the whole culture of those of us who love glassy water. You get up in the morning, ooh, that's skiing water right there.
That's
Yeah. But fortunately, I married into my spouse. He's also a big aquatic person, and so a lot more aquatic adventures, yeah, keep coming towards us over the
excellent.
years. Mhm.
Okay. Nice. I actually learned to swim way late. So I am a rock by nature.
Uh,
I think I learned how to swim. So my mom and I both did not know how, and I think I learned when I was like 13 or 14. So like very late compared to like when most kids learn how to swim. Um, so it was like adult classes at like the YMCA, and it was like literally little kids that were just swimming laps back and forth. And here I am just trying to like tread water.
what
And
about you?
I'm okay, but I can get across like the width of a pool. Probably I could probably do the length of a pool, but I can't tell you I do a full lap kind of thing. So I am definitely an adult that can just kind of I will stay on the boat for sure.
Oh, there you go.
So
Get some tan.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
now, like, so Cori, for your journey, obviously your passion has now become something that you do. How long did that take? Where were some stops along the way of some career developments, and when did you start maybe thinking that this is something I could actually pursue? Because it's very very clear that you've married what you love into what you do, and not many people get a chance to do that.
Yeah, it was certainly, as I kind of talked about childhood, it was something that I did every summer, right? I was the typical summer lifeguard. Great, great job, for through high school and college, because you can leave it and it's there for you don't have to apply each season. Um,
Hmm.
Not so great, especially as I'm aging and the skin thing. And yeah, uh, skin was not great as a teenager. But it is something that, yeah, I just always went back to when I moved up to Seattle after college. I did a volunteer program for a year. So kind of, I describe it as like a domestic Peace Corps sort of
Mm,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Lived in community, was a full-time volunteer at a great organization. And then after that, because I hadn't been earning money, just enough money to, live off of,
Mhm.
the quickest, fastest job was back in aquatics for me. So I popped back into aquatics while I was kind of figuring out what's my grown-up job going to be, and dabbled in things like I thought maybe I'd go back and do occupational therapy. So I'd looked into some aquatic therapy. I was doing some aquatic therapy kinds of things, and worked in like a nursing home. And so it's kind of in this realm of therapy and taking and caretaking of people and that sort of thing. But my husband and I, we weren't married at the time, but we kind of said, well, why don't we try opening a swim school? What the heck? We've got nothing to lose. Not married, have no kids, don't own anything really.
Let's do it.
Let's just do it. What do we got to lose? And it's funny, then it's like much of life, you grow up and suddenly then you look back and you go, wait a second, oh gosh, we're really like doing this. This
Mhm.
is happening for us. Um,
And
so
so that
we
You
was
have
just like,
literally jumped in the deep end.
yeah.
jumped
So,
in the deep
huh?
end.
Huh? Huh?
There we
Did
go.
you?
All right.
So that just like popped up one day that your, I guess now husband was like, let's just do this, and like was there dialogue prior, or like even a thought or a plan to do that, or was that just like you're sitting eating one day, you're like, we should open up a school for swimming? I just
Yeah.
think that's it's like almost like simple, and it's like that's the way to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really was kind of that simple. I
That's
mean, we were
awesome.
both working in
Mhm.
aquatics and both like figuring out what's our grown-up job gonna be.
Right.
And actually my dad had planted the seed in me. Quite a few years earlier of just the idea of why don't you've been teaching swimming lessons, why don't you do it on your own? You probably, could make some money on the side teaching swimming
Yeah.
lessons. And it's not uncommon for people, not super uncommon for people to do something in their own backyard, right? You got a backyard pool, get some neighborhood kids together, and you start teaching. So that idea was certainly out there. And I
Sure.
think, yeah.
The first thing that comes to my mind when I think about this sort of thing, though, is there had to be like a little bit of risk involved. I would think, like, to go ahead and say, okay, we're gonna start teaching classes. We're gonna start teaching kids, basically to survive, right? So there's I don't know if maybe just some logical part of my brain is like, oh my God, insurance is there. So did you have to like what kind of process is that to go through and get like certified to teach? Do you have to prove like, all sorts of first aid things too in order to just start your own school, or is it kind of fly by the seat of your pants?
Well,
I
sorry
hope
to
it's
tell
not that. I
you.
hope it's not
Well,
that.
I was sorry to tell you, Alan, who has maybe not the greatest experience with water. It is a little bit of fly by the seat of your pants in the US. There's not a lot of regulation around teaching swimming. There are programs, certainly the American Red Cross or the YMCA, um, and we do have insurance, so that was a thing. Yeah, that was a good dad question at the time. You have insurance, right?
Yeah, there's always got to
Uh,
be one good dad question.
Yeah, there's a good
That's
dad
right.
question there. You have insurance. So yes, having the insurance. But the insurance, um you do have to have a lifeguard, right? So there's some certifications around lifeguarding, but not instructing itself, not to be an instructor
Interesting.
itself. And which is the place, I mean, where we're at right now, where we certify adult teachers, because that's an area in a segment that there is virtually no training
Nothing.
on how to
Yep.
work with adults. It's directed towards kids, and it's very
Yeah.
different working with adults.
And what? Tell me what in what ways? Like I'm like as I remember when I'm thinking about doing swimming lessons as a kid, like I'm going back to like the stuff that we did, and I mean it was fairly. It seemed to me like relatively ageless. That like everyone would have to know most of these things. I'm sure like some of the games that we played, but what are some of the ways that maybe the approach with adults is different than it is for like kids?
Yeah, well, the big thing, and I love that, Alan, you shared that you were about 14 when you did it. And there's a shift developmentally in the brain and how we think about things and how we process things from being a younger child to, a 8, 9, 10-year old, and then
Totally.
teenagers, right, have different things. I mean, you just even think about a teenager, their brain is like so worried about social things and
Yeah.
how they look and all that external judgment. And so having that ability to connect with your body in the water and fail and not be good at something and
Mhm.
be awkward, right? That's really difficult for a teenager.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about that. I guess I was. I mean, I probably thought about this. It just maybe it was in my subconscious when I was doing some of those lessons. That's a very good point.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of folks, we'll see a lot of people who are like, I I was 5 years old or 6 years old and we did some swimming things. It was fine. And then like the next year we came back to it and suddenly everybody seemed to know what they were doing and I didn't. And so
Mhm.
there'll be a lot of people who will stop right there, like, what is wrong with
I'm
me?
missing something. Yeah.
Mhm. And it
Yeah.
could be as simple as, yeah, those other families, they all spent their summer vacation at the lake or doing something as their family around the water. So they kept kind of growing their swimming through play, which
Mm,
is how children learn,
yeah.
right? Is they learn
Yeah.
through play. They're not doing it on purpose and they figure out how the water works.
Right.
And then you go to a swimming lesson to be told specific styles of swimming.
Mhm.
Sure. That was the case for me, was really that we went on a summer vacation and it would be somewhere with a hotel pool. but that was kind of the extent of it. Like we both live in Wisconsin, so we're right along Lake Michigan, and Jim grew up in Illinois, but still close to the lake. And so like, we didn't go to the beach here because that just kind of wasn't the thing. Like I mean, we would go, but we would stay on land kind of thing. Like other than wading out in the water maybe a little bit, there was not a lot of like experience with that. But I get what you're saying about like that's where a lot of people learn is by playing or getting pushed in or whatever, like as a kid, and then you're not as afraid of it. And then I think either you're born afraid of it, I guess, maybe, but you're either not afraid of it or you're just kind of part of it, and then you learn the mechanics of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a different experience for everybody. And I was in the latter group that didn't have a lot of that. So
Yeah. Well, and I think you said your mom didn't swim either.
yeah, she didn't swim either. My dad can swim like he's like a fish. He's great. He can take to it like it's no problem.
Hmm.
But yeah, my mom never did, and so we learned together, kind of.
Yeah.
And both of us just kind of went, and she was much older, so she was, by that point, she probably would have been into her 40s at least, and really kind of, other than just a pool, that's kind of the only exposure that we both had to swimming at all.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I always say that our parents, they have two very loving options around the water. And one, if they can't swim, is they can keep their kid away. Because
Yeah.
if they
Mhm.
never go in, they're never going to drown.
Right.
Or
Right.
they can like make them go to swimming lessons, right?
Mhm.
But it's scary for a parent to have your child go off and do something that people die doing it,
Right.
right? It's just a
Mhm.
Right.
fact. And so it would be very scary for a parent to send a kid off. I particularly have a lot of compassion around first generation families too,
Mhm.
who when you have language and culture on top of that, right, to send your kid off to do something at multiple levels that you just don't understand. And so it's a very loving thing. And so, yeah, as you went out to go learn and your mom's sitting on the shore going, "Oh, Ellen, don't die." Like you
Yeah.
kind of have that. You
Yeah.
pick it up as a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so we've gone through the insurance part of that thing, but then getting the word out to people that this is something you were doing. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, you said you grew up or were working in aquatics at that point, but the initial process of getting the word out to people and telling people that this is something that you provide as a service, what was that kind of like for you? How did you kind of go about it? And were people receptive to that sort of thing initially? Like people that, because it's not like something in the traditional sales thing of saying like, you need this, I can provide this, right? It's not a product. It's something that has to kind of come up in conversation. And not everybody knows if you're a swimmer or not, or if you know how to swim. It's not a normal conversation. So how did you kind of get the word out that you had started a swim school?
Yeah, well, um, I mean, to be perfectly honest, we started in 99 with the kids program.
Mhm.
So
Hmm.
we're talking, flyers
Hmm.
on bulletin boards. It was really how we started just in general with our swim program. And we rented space at pools. So kind of the community knew where pools were and they would call them and we'd get referrals that way. Um, we had a employee early on in the very beginning days of the internet got us onto the internet. So we were really an early adapter onto the internet
Awesome.
and people finding us that way. But it is an essential part of our conversation with people to help them get the idea. Maybe people really come because they're adults now at this point because they've gone on vacation and they missed out. And
Mhm.
so then they're looking, right? So people are
Hmm.
looking, where can I get adult swimming lessons? And there's just not a lot out there. And because we also frame all of our conversation around overcoming fear and beginning swimming and teaching specifically to adults,
Mhm.
then people go, oh, thank you. Because I don't want to go, like you were saying in the YMCA class. I don't want to be with all these kids and then
Right.
be the only adult there. That feels very embarrassing um yeah, there's a lot of emotion that goes along with that. So
Yeah.
people
Good
really
point.
Yeah, I
appreciate.
can tell you firsthand, it did feel embarrassing
Yeah.
for sure.
Which then I
Yeah.
imagine that like creating a sense of community in all of this is pretty critical. I mean, because it is doing something like this and being not confident about it, at a certain age does get really uncomfortable. And so, and I know that you've done this and it really have tried to be determined to make this a community aspect. What's that been like, and how do folks respond? Do they feel? Do you find them feeling pretty comfortable right away, or does it take a couple classes to really trust you? Or how are you finding that community building is going too?
Yeah, the community piece is really is really a neat thing
Mhm.
that we do in terms of um most of our classes are group classes, although everybody coming in is like, no, I really think I need a private lesson. I'm the one that it's not going to work for,
It's always
right?
what
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to hold the group back. Like
Oh,
it's going to, and, and we have a conversation with people ahead of time to just say, yeah, but what if you were in a group of everybody who felt like you?
mhm.
And that right away, people are like, huh. What most folks don't know is that about half of adults don't know how to swim.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That's
so
wow, yeah.
I immediately feel better at being
exact
an okay swimmer. Not I
Uh,
shouldn't even say okay. I can survive.
yes. There you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so half of adults don't know how to swim, aren't confident in deep water, don't know how to get rest and air, they're kind of dependent on getting to a certain distance, and if that distance changes, it might really be a problem. So,
Hmm.
yeah, so people feel better knowing that. And then when we get into the group class, we spend about an hour talking before we even hit the water.
Mhm.
Because because adults, as we kind of talked about before, our brains, because the three of us are adults, our brains are different than children, and we have to have this mental understanding of things
Mhm.
in order to, confidently move forward. So we do spend time with that, and folks feel so much better hearing their story amongst the other people that are in the group. Yeah, it
Uh,
normalizes things.
that's got to be critical. I mean, I'm just picturing myself walking into something like this of, oh boy, how is this going to go? And then being like, oh wait, everyone's on the exact same page as me. Like that's yeah, and then I bet they kind of lose their inhibitions a bit and are more willing to follow along and do what you're telling them to do and probably get better like pretty quickly. I mean, I'm sure, I can imagine the results that you're seeing on it.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
And it's always fun. Like one person will have an easier time in one area and somebody will have a little bit, so there's this nice mix and match for people to be able to cheer each other on and know where they've come from. Yeah. It's a wonderful experience.
How long is the program for? Like a couple weeks, a couple months. How long do you typically have students in for?
Well, our foundational class is
Mhm.
20 hours. And so we break it into I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, does that work out? We break it into 6 3-hour classes. 6 times 3 is not 20 though, is it?
That's 18. Yeah.
Thank you. It's
So,
18. Yeah, we
Yeah,
but I
have
mean, if there's hours of discussion in there too, I'm sure.
to be
yeah,
it.
yeah,
You are
yeah.
correct.
Um, but yeah,
Excellent.
so that's our basic class to
Mhm.
get people kind of over the hump and
Hmm.
understanding. We tell people it usually takes somewhere between 20 to 100 hours of
Mhm.
being in the water to really feel like, oh, I really got it. Because you have to, it's not just like, oh, I can do it and I've done it once. The
Mhm.
water's so variable, so you're like, I'm doing it again. Why is it different? Well,
Right.
because, there's just some nuances that changed. And so we do have to have time in it.
Sure. Now I have to ask, because you guys are in the Pacific Northwest and you've got the ocean nearby, and fear of deep water is apparently, is
Mhm.
definitely a central part of that. Do you ever have somebody that's advanced that you're like, well, let's go to the coast and let's try this out further? Or is it more like, let's start in a pool? Like, where does this kind of go on for you
Or just dunk them,
mostly?
put their hand underwater, be like,
Yeah,
"You
just
feel
dunk them.
confident
Yeah.
now?"
Yeah.
Any of those.
Yeah, I'm like that uncle. Let's just dunk in.
We
Yeah.
got your vibe. Don't worry, Corey.
Yeah, no, we started a nice 94-degree pool.
Mhm.
Uh,
Okay.
it's very warm, because, fear is a cold emotion. And when people are feeling afraid, you're kind of like, collapsing into yourself anyways. And then you get into water that's below your body temperature, then you're shivering as well. And you don't know, like, why am I so tense? Is it because I'm cold? Is it because I'm afraid? Like, it just gets hard to navigate out. So we start people in a nice, warm space. In the summertime, we have folks um, that we take them into the lake. We don't take people into the ocean around here so much because we can because we can
Mhm.
train people on how to, but cold water, it's another kind of thing.
Sure.
That piece of it. So we go to Hawaii. We go to Hawaii and do the ocean.
Of course.
Hey, that's
Oh,
actually that's part of it that I never would even have considered is that your body does that, like reacts that way to, to cold versus warmth. And
Hmm.
that makes total sense to me. Because you're shivering, but your muscles are tensing up because you're cold on top of
mhm.
would have never even thought about the physical part of it. And also it is like 50 degrees here today. And I'm like, I would kill for a 94-degree pool right now.
Sounds wonderful. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And
I'm
have you
surprised it's
had?
only 50 there.
Yeah, I know it's a heat
That
wave.
seems warm.
We're liking it. Yeah,
It
yeah. I
is
was on
actually
shorts.
unseasonably warm right
It
now.
was
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Um, have you had students maybe that are like after they're done with your program have developed a bit of a passion for it, and maybe have come back and what? And I'm sure some are just wanting to learn and go, but I imagine with how immersive and how really engaged that they are. Like, do you find folks coming back and like wanting to help, or what's that community like when it's
Mm.
done?
For sure. I mean, we have students who come back and they do literally help in the classes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, and so they can act as kind of mentors in the class, but they also, when people are very first learning to float, you drift around,
Mhm.
driftwood, things in the water drift, and for some people can be scary. So we will help hold them in a place. So our students will come back and help with that. We even actually have one student who he helped with so many classes and just loved his swim journey. He's now a teacher.
There you
Oh
go.
wow.
I
Yep.
knew
There you go.
there had to be someone. Yes, that's pretty cool. That's
Yep, he's a teacher. So yeah, we definitely have that. And then, people most of the time people want to learn to swim because they want to be out on and around the water.
hmm
So we do fun things like stand-up paddleboard classes, and
Nice.
we'll match up with people who are experts in that area. It's not our expertise, but we're expert at getting those teachers. The stand-up paddleboard teachers are usually like, let's do these 15 things all at once. And everybody's like, whoa. So we come in and let's all slow the roll here. And
Yeah,
yeah, so
much needed, I'm sure. Yeah.
mhm.
So, okay, so let's talk about, growing too and having those classes and things like that. Where do you see kind of the business growing from here? You have now students that have become teachers. Do you plan on kind of trying to expand out that way, just more personnel? Like, what does growth look like for you, for the school?
Yeah, what growth really looks at, my very favorite thing to do. I mean, I love teaching adults, but I love knowing that people are transforming their lives, and I can only do so much of it. So what I
Mm,
really love is training teachers
Hmm.
because the exponential value to that. And our growth area is to certify teachers to be able to start their own program in their local place, right?
Mhm.
So, because we're not, as much as I would love to travel to Milwaukee, maybe more like Racine. My dad grew
In
up
the
in
summer,
Racine.
yeah, in the summer, yeah.
Why? Yeah.
But we do travel to places to teach, but we're not going to get everywhere. So it's about us certifying teachers and building that teacher community. That's what we have
Mhm.
with our staff here, right? Of being able to check in and build up those resources for people teaching adults, because it's very nuanced. And so that's really our biggest growth area. That and retreats is doing more retreats. We're looking at
Awesome.
Greece and Mexico and Hawaii, and yeah, doing swim
Oh
retreats. Go
wow.
learn to
Oh,
swim.
that is
Yeah, on
sweet. Gosh.
vacation.
Yeah. So like is that like I mean obviously bonding time and then also like going swimming and doing like in those places. That's so that really I mean that's a community that people are going to commit to doing that and kind of going along. That's really awesome. That's how
Yeah.
many of those do you or what would you envision kind of being the a couple a year or something like that?
Yep, the vision is that my personal vision is I teach 4 times a year in warm tropical places,
No, yeah,
I like
teaching
yeah,
it.
students and training the teachers. We
that's
all go
right.
to some
And it's
beautiful
got to be done
place.
there. Yeah, yeah,
Yep,
perfect,
yep.
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that also speaks to, like, like you said, people go on vacation and they feel like they missed out. Like my
Mm,
wife and I just went to San Diego and I saw people surfing, and honestly, a part of me would love to go out and try to surf and do it, but I know I'm not a good swimmer like that. You know what I mean? Like I would love to go try it, but I know that's not for me. You know what I mean? Like that's not in the cards for right now. So when you
Yeah.
have people on vacation, does that also kind of help like relax them and get them into maybe a learning mode, because they're learning this in, like you said, Greece or Mexico or wherever, somewhere that is um far away from anyone that's going to see them and humiliate them or embarrass them, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's that piece of it. There's also just the piece of like, I don't have to commute there. I'm going to go from
mm,
my room in my resort to walk down to the pool, use that resource that I've always wanted to use, right? The pool or the beach, we'll do both depending on the place and the level of the class. But um and just to really be able to focus in on it, right? We swim a couple times a day. We have good food. We rest and relax, right? You just have this nice focus and take the pressure off of that learning environment. And
Sure.
um, and like I said, I mean, it's about making these big first steps,
mm.
that you have enough time so you're not like cramming it in after work and that kind of thing. Just give yourself some nice spacious place to take care of yourself and to really move through something big.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is so unique to come at it from, something that is kind of a basic thing for people to do, but to come at it from like a peace of mind standpoint of saying we're putting you in a place where you will physically learn how to
Mhm,
learn best. You
mhm.
know what I mean? You'll be at ease. That is something that I think is completely different from, your average YMCA swim class. Like that environment, I think is everything.
Yeah, those community center classes are noisy and so much is going
Yeah,
on
too
and
much out there.
chaos. And I mean, they definitely have their place and there's definitely, a role there. But
Mhm,
um, you know, especially for folks who've had fear or the embarrassment and that kind of thing, it's just really nice to be able to do it that way. And it does, we help craft for people how, when they do go on vacation with their families, like we think about what the activities they really want to do and how is it that they can do those things at their level of swimming,
mhm,
because
Mhm.
there's different levels of swimming, right? And so we want to make sure that people can have fun right now. And there are,
mhm.
while being safe, right? That's sort of the equation that we are always going for.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. That's so, so cool. And I like that, you tailor it to a lifestyle too. You tailor it to abilities, and you're making it relatable, which is something that, like you said, you don't really get in those noisy classes that are just kind of here's the fundamentals kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this has been really great. If people want
Yeah.
to go find you online and learn a little bit more about what you do, learn more about retreats, things like that, where are the best places to go and find you?
Yeah, so our website is adultswimlesson.com. So that
Okay.
would be one great place to go. You can also go to our YouTube page, which is Calm Within Adult Swim. And
Okay.
so you can see
Excellent.
me talk all about swimming.
And the
Perfect.
wild
Love it.
aquatic aspirations. I'm sticking
Yes.
with that one because I like it. That's fantastic.
Jim and I are gonna sign up for a retreat, and we're just gonna go on the vacation part of it, and then maybe
Yeah.
I'll learn how to swim too. Jim's got it. He's got it
Yeah, yeah,
down. I'll
I got
try.
this. Yeah.
I'll try to swim along the way, but we'll see what happens.
That's right.
But
Love it.
well, thank you so much for doing this, for coming on the show and talking to us about it. I really, really like the approach, and I like the way that you're reaching out to people and helping
Yeah.
people, and pursuing a passion project, and with this business as well. It is a passion of yours, so
A
it's
little bit of everything.
amazing to see.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
Thanks
so
for having me.
Of course.
yeah. Absolutely. And thank you all for watching and listening and checking out the podcast. We are the Hustling Sideways podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe if you haven't done so already. You can also find us. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we are on X, we are on YouTube as well. I'm like, we're
Oh,
on
you
all
said
of the
not that.
places.
I forgot that doesn't exist anymore. Yes, X is right.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I'm trying. I'm really trying. We are also we're on TikTok as well, and we are now on LinkedIn. So
Yes,
feel free to go and
because
add
we're
us
really
all
professional.
of the places.
Yeah, yeah.
If we keep saying we're really professional, I think eventually LinkedIn
True.
is gonna
It'll
just
be.
say, yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably right.
they
Yeah.
must be.
So
Manifest.
They must be.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to be a guest on the show as well, please send us an email. We have a Gmail. It is hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And Jim,
Keep on hustling.
see you next week.